The morning sun rose slowly over the village, stretching golden fingers across the thatched roofs and dusty paths. But for Zara, it brought no warmth, only another day of exhaustion. "Zara!" The sharp voice cut through the quiet like a whip. She jolted awake on her thin raffia mat, her heart already racing. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then reality settled over her like a heavy blanket. Her uncle's house, her prison. "I'm coming!" She called quickly, scrambling to her feet. Her voice sounded small, even to her own ears. The room she slept in was barely a room, just a corner of the house separated by a worn curtain. The mud walls were cracked, and the air carried the faint smell of damp earth. Her belongings could fit into a small basket. 2 faded wrappers, a torn blouse, and a pair of slippers so worn the soles had thinned to nothing. She tied her wrapper tightly around her waist and rushed outside. Her aunt stood in the compound, arms folded, her face already twisted in irritation. "So you've decided to wake up today?" her aunt snapped. "Lazy girl, the sun is already up and you're still sleeping like a queen." "I'm sorry, Ma," Zara said softly, lowering her eyes. "Sorry." That word had become her constant companion. "Go and fetch water from the stream, and be quick about it," her aunt added. "Or don't bother coming back." Zara nodded and reached for the empty buckets without another word. She had learned long ago that explanations only made things worse. The path to the stream was long and uneven, winding through patches of dry grass and clusters of small huts. The morning air was still cool, and the birds chirped overhead, but Zara barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, always elsewhere. As she walked, balancing the buckets against her sides, she passed other girls her age, laughing, chatting, their hair neatly braided, their clothes clean and colorful. One of them glanced at her and whispered something to her friend. They both giggled. Zara kept her gaze forward. She was used to it. In the village, everyone knew her story, or at least the version her uncle allowed them to know. The orphan girl, the one they took in out of pity, the one who should be grateful, but no one saw the truth, or maybe no one cared. The stream shimmered under the early sunlight, its surface calm and inviting. Zara knelt by the edge, dipping her bucket into the water. For a moment, she paused. Her reflection stared back at her, a young woman, but her eyes told a different story. They were tired, older than they should be. Her cheeks were hollow, her skin dull, her lips dry and cracked. Her once full hair now looked thin and uneven, often hidden beneath a scarf. She barely recognized herself. "What would my mother say if she saw me like this?" she whispered. The question lingered in the air. She didn't have an answer because her mother had been gone for so long that even her voice had begun to fade from memory. All Zara had left were fragments, soft laughter, warm hands, a lullaby hummed in the dark, and then nothing. Her parents had died when she was very young. Some said it was an illness, others said it was bad luck. Zara never knew the full truth. All she knew was that one day she had a home filled with love, and the next she was standing outside her uncle's house, clutching a small bundle of clothes, her world shattered. At first, things hadn't been so bad. Her uncle had taken her in, and though he wasn't affectionate, he provided food and shelter. But everything changed when his wife moved in. From the moment her aunt entered the house, Zara's life became something else entirely. Something harsh, something cold. "Why is she still here?" her aunt had once asked, loud enough for Zara to hear. "She eats our food, wears our clothes, and does nothing." That day, Zara had been given her first list of chores. The next day, the list grew longer and longer, until it became her entire life. "Hey, move!" A sudden shove snapped Zara out of her thoughts. She stumbled slightly, nearly dropping her bucket. "Sorry," she murmured quickly. The woman who pushed her scoffed. "Watch where you're standing." Zara stepped aside, lowering her head again. She had learned to make herself small, invisible. It was safer that way. By the time she finished fetching water and returned home, the sun was already higher in the sky. Her arms ached from carrying the heavy buckets, but she didn't dare complain. As she entered the compound, her aunt's eyes immediately locked onto her. "What took you so long?" she demanded. "There were many people at the stream," Zara said carefully. Her aunt clicked her tongue. "Excuses, always excuses." "I'm sorry, Ma." "Go and start preparing breakfast, and after that, you'll go to the farm." Zara nodded. "Yes, Ma." The kitchen was a small, smoky space at the back of the house. As Zara lit the firewood, the smoke stung her eyes, making them water. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and continued working, grinding pepper, boiling water, stirring the pot. Every movement was quick, practiced, efficient. There was no room for mistakes, because mistakes came with consequences. Later that afternoon, under the harsh sun, Zara worked on the farm. Her feet sank into the dry soil as she bent over, pulling weeds and tending to the crops. Sweat dripped down her face, soaking into her clothes. Her back screamed in protest, but she kept going because stopping was not an option. "Zara!" Her uncle's voice called from a distance. She straightened quickly. "Yes, sir." "Come here." She hurried over, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "Aye." Her uncle stood under a tree, his expression unreadable. "You didn't finish clearing the eastern side," he said. "I was about to, sir." Before she could finish, his hand came down hard across her cheek. The sound echoed. Zara staggered back, her head spinning. "Don't argue with me," he barked. "Do your work properly, I'm sorry, sir." She whispered, her voice trembling. Her cheek burned, but she didn't cry. Not here, never here. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Zara finally finished her work. Her body felt heavy, like it no longer belonged to her. She walked back to the house slowly, each step dragging. The village was alive with evening sounds, laughter, cooking, music, but none of it reached her. She existed on the outside of it all. That night, after everyone had eaten, Zara sat alone behind the house, staring up at the sky. The stars were bright, endless, free. She wrapped her arms around herself, her heart aching in a way she couldn't explain. "Is this my life?" she whispered. The question felt dangerous because deep down she knew the answer. But something inside her refused to fully give up. A tiny spark, a quiet voice. It whispered of something more, of a life beyond this village, beyond pain, beyond survival, a life where she could breathe, where she could be seen, where she could be loved. Zara closed her eyes. For just a moment she allowed herself to imagine it, a different life, a different future, a different version of herself. Then her aunt's voice shattered the silence. "Zara, where are you? Come and wash the plates." The dream disappeared instantly. Zara stood up slowly. "I'm coming, Ma." And just like that, she returned to the life she never chose. A life without love, a life without escape, a life that, unknown to her, was about to change forever. The night air was thick with heat, even though the sun had long disappeared. The earth still held on to its warmth, and the small compound felt suffocating. Crickets chirped in the distance, and somewhere far off, a baby cried. But inside the house, everything was unusually quiet. Too quiet. Zara noticed it immediately. She stood by the kitchen doorway, rinsing the last of the plates in a small basin. Her hands moved slowly, absent-mindedly, as her ears strained to pick up the low murmurs coming from the front room. Her uncle's voice and another voice, a man's voice, deep, rough, unfamiliar. Zara frowned slightly. Visitors at this hour were rare. She tried to ignore it. It wasn't her business. Nothing in that house ever was. But something about the tone made her uneasy. "I've been patient," the man was saying, his voice low but edged with warning. Zara's hand stilled. She leaned ever so slightly toward the wall, her heart beginning to beat faster. Her uncle let out a forced laugh. "And I appreciate that, my brother. You know I'm a man of my word." "Do I?" the man replied sharply. The silence that followed felt heavy. Zara swallowed. Something was wrong. She quickly finished rinsing the plates and stacked them neatly, but instead of walking away, she lingered near the doorway, her back pressed lightly against the wall. The voices became clearer. "You borrowed money from me," the man continued. "A lot of money, and the time you promised has passed." I know, her uncle said quickly. "Things have been difficult. The harvest." "I don't care about your harvest," the man snapped. Zara flinched. The sudden anger in his voice made her chest tighten. "I want my money," he continued, slower this time, more dangerous. "Or I will take something else." Zara's breath caught. Take something else? What did that mean? There was a long pause. Zara could almost hear her uncle thinking. Then slowly he spoke. There might be another way. Zara's stomach twisted. The tone of his voice had changed. Lower, cautious, calculating. "What way?" the man asked. Her uncle hesitated for only a moment. "I have a girl." The words landed like a stone in Zara's chest. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the basin. A girl? Who? Her heart began to pound. No, no. She's young. Her uncle continued. Strong, hard-working. She can cook, clean, farm, anything you want. Zara's vision blurred. Her knees felt weak. He couldn't be talking about, The man sounded interested now. Is she beautiful? Zara's breath hitched. Her uncle chuckled lightly. More than enough. The man let out a low hum. And she belongs to you. Zara's heart dropped. Belongs? She lives under my roof, her uncle replied. She is my responsibility. That was enough. Zara didn't need to hear her name. She knew. Her entire body went cold. The basin slipped slightly in her hands, water splashing over the edge onto her feet. But she didn't feel it. They were talking about her, like she was an object, like she was something to trade. And you're offering her to me? The man asked. Yes, her uncle said. The answer came too quickly, too easily. Zara's chest tightened painfully. No hesitation, no doubt, no care. For marriage, the man pressed. For whatever you want, her uncle replied. Zara felt something inside her break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The man let out a slow, satisfied breath. I like that, he said. A debt settled with something useful. Zara pressed her hand against her mouth to stop herself from making a sound. Tears filled her eyes. This couldn't be happening, couldn't be real. When can I see her? The man asked. Tomorrow, her uncle said. You will like her. I'm sure I will. Footsteps shifted, chairs scraped. Zara panicked. If they came out and saw her standing there, she quickly grabbed the basin and rushed back into the kitchen, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it could be heard from outside. She dropped to her knees, pretending to scrub something that was already clean. Her hands trembled violently. Her mind raced. They're going to give you away. They're going to sell you. A few moments later, she heard footsteps approaching. She froze. Her uncle stepped into the kitchen. Why are you still here? He asked sharply. Zara kept her head down. I was finishing the dishes, sir. He stared at her for a moment. Something about his gaze felt different, heavier, evaluating. It made her skin crawl. He grunted. Go and sleep. You have work tomorrow. Yes, sir, she whispered. She stood up quickly, avoiding his eyes, and walked out. But as she passed him, she felt it. His gaze lingering on her, not like before, not like a guardian, like a trader inspecting goods. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She lay on her mat, staring into the darkness, her body stiff, her mind replaying every word she had heard. A girl, strong, for whatever you want. Her stomach churned. Tears slid silently down her temples into her hair. She didn't wipe them away. Marriage. The word felt foreign, heavy, terrifying. She had seen marriages in the village. Some were happy. Most were not. And this wasn't even a marriage. It was a transaction. Payment. What if he's cruel? She whispered into the darkness. Her voice trembled. What if he hurts me? The questions came one after another, unanswered, unstoppable. She turned onto her side, clutching her thin wrapper tightly around herself. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't breathe properly. I don't want this. Her voice broke. I don't want this life. But what choice did she have? Where would she go? Who would help her? Or she had no family, no money, no place to run. For the first time in a long while, Zara felt truly trapped, not just in her uncle's house, but in her own life. Outside, the night continued as if nothing had changed. The crickets still chirped. The wind still moved through the trees. The world went on. But for Zara, everything had changed. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, and deep in her heart, a quiet fear began to grow. A fear that whispered, this is only the beginning. And it was right. Morning came too quickly. Zara hadn't slept, not even for a moment. Her eyes burned from the tears she had tried to hide, and her body felt heavy, as though the weight of the night's revelation had settled into her bones. Still, when her aunt's voice rang out across the compound, sharp and unforgiving as always, Zara rose immediately. Zara, are you dead in there? I'm coming, Ma, she replied, her voice hoarse. She pushed herself up from the mat, her legs weak beneath her, and stepped outside. The morning sun was already climbing, casting long shadows across the compound. Everything looked the same as it always did, but nothing felt the same. Her aunt stood near the cooking area, hands on her hips, her eyes scanning Zara from head to toe. Look at you, she scoffed. You look like you've been crying all night. Zara quickly lowered her gaze. No, Ma, don't lie to me, her aunt snapped, stepping closer. Or have you suddenly become too proud to answer properly? I'm sorry, Ma, Zara said quickly. Always sorry, always small. Her aunt studied her for a moment longer, then clicked her tongue. Go and wash your face. We have a visitor coming. Zara's heart skipped. A visitor? Her stomach tightened instantly. Who is coming, Ma? She asked carefully. Her aunt's lips curled into a thin smile. You'll see. Zara didn't need to be told twice. She turned quickly and walked toward the water pot, her hands trembling slightly as she splashed water onto her face. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the surface. She looked worse than she felt, and she felt terrible. He's coming! The thought echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. The man from last night. The man her uncle had offered her to. Her chest tightened. No, she whispered under her breath. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe they were talking about someone else. Maybe Zara. Her aunt's voice cut through her thoughts again. Yes, Ma. Stop standing there like a fool and come inside. Zara wiped her face quickly and obeyed. Inside the house, her aunt was already moving around, arranging things with unusual care. Straightening mats, dusting surfaces, even adjusting the curtains. It was strange. Her aunt never cared about such things. Not for Zara. Go and change, her aunt said suddenly. Zara blinked. Ma, are you deaf? Her aunt snapped. I said go and change. Wear something decent for once. Zara hesitated. Which one, Ma? Her aunt rolled her eyes in irritation, then walked into the small room and returned with one of her own wrappers. Slightly faded, but far better than anything Zara owned. Wear this, she said, tossing it at her. Zara caught it in surprise. This had never happened before. Never. Ma, she began cautiously. Her aunt leaned closer, her voice dropping low. Don't embarrass us today, she said. Stand properly, speak when spoken to, and don't show your useless village behavior. Zara swallowed. Yes, Ma. As she changed, her hands shook. The wrapper felt foreign against her skin. Too clean, too good, like it didn't belong to her, like she didn't deserve it. When she stepped out, her aunt looked her over with a critical eye. She muttered. At least you look like a human being now. Zara said nothing. Then she heard it. A voice. That same voice from the night before, deep, rough, unmistakable. I hope I'm not too early, the man said. Zara froze. Her heart began to pound so hard she felt it in her ears. Her uncle's voice followed. Not at all, my brother. You are welcome. Zara's feet felt rooted to the ground. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her aunt turned sharply toward her. What are you waiting for? She hissed. Come. Zara forced herself to move. One step, then another. Each step felt heavier than the last. As she entered the front room, her eyes fell on him. Victor. He sat comfortably, one leg crossed over the other, his presence filling the room like a dark cloud. He was bigger than she imagined, older. His face was hard, his eyes sharp and assessing. When his gaze landed on her, he smiled. Zara's stomach turned. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind that made your skin crawl. So, this is her, Victor said slowly. Her uncle beamed. Yes, this is Zara. Zara lowered her gaze immediately. Her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Come closer, Victor said, her breath caught. She didn't move. I said come closer, he repeated, his tone firmer. Her aunt's hand suddenly gripped her arm tightly. Go, she whispered harshly. Zara stepped forward slowly, carefully, like she was walking into something she couldn't escape. Victor leaned forward slightly, studying her. He reached out and lifted her chin without asking. Zara flinched. He murmured. She's even prettier up close. Her skin crawled under his touch. She wanted to pull away, but she didn't dare. Do you know why I'm here? He asked. Zara's lips parted slightly. No, sir, she whispered. He chuckled. You will soon. Her uncle cleared his throat. We have discussed everything, he said. She is yours. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. Zara's head snapped up. What? Before she could finish, her aunt slapped her hard. The sound echoed through the room. Zara staggered back, her cheek burning instantly. Keep quiet, her aunt snapped. When elders are speaking, you don't interrupt. Tears filled Zara's eyes. But, another slap, stronger. You will marry him, her aunt said coldly. And that is the end of it. Zara's world tilted. No, she whispered. Her voice shook. No, please, I can't. Her uncle's expression darkened. You can, he said firmly. And you will. I don't want to, Zara cried, the words bursting out before she could stop them. The room fell silent. For a brief moment, no one moved. Then her uncle stepped forward and struck her. The force sent her to the ground. Pain exploded across her face, her vision blurring. You ungrateful girl, he shouted. After everything we've done for you. Zara lay on the floor, trembling. Everything. What had they done? You eat our food, he continued. You live in our house, and this is how you repay us. I didn't ask for this, she sobbed. Her aunt scoffed. You don't get to ask for anything. Victor watched the entire scene quietly, amused. Finally, he spoke. Enough, he said. The room fell silent again. He stood up slowly and walked toward Zara. She froze. He crouched down in front of her, his eyes locking onto hers. You belong to me now, he said calmly. Her breath hitched. The wedding will be soon. That's too soon, her uncle began. Victor cut him off with a glance. I don't like waiting. Her uncle nodded quickly. Of course. Zara shook her head weakly. No, please. But no one was listening. The decision had been made without her. Victor stood up and adjusted his clothes. I'll return for my bride, he said. Then he walked out, just like that. The moment the door closed, the silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was heavier, darker, final. Zara remained on the floor, her body shaking. Tears streamed freely now. She didn't try to stop them. In a short time, her life would no longer be hers. Her aunt looked down at her with disgust. Stop crying, she said. You should be grateful. A man wants you. Grateful? Zara let out a broken laugh through her tears. That night, she didn't just feel trapped. She felt erased. But deep inside, beneath the fear, beneath the pain, something began to stir. A quiet voice. A dangerous thought. What if I run? The idea terrified her, but it didn't leave. And for the first time, Zara began to think not about surviving, but escaping. The morning of the wedding arrived with a cruel kind of brightness. The sun rose boldly, as if it were any other day, warm, golden, indifferent. But for Zara, it felt like the sky itself was mocking her. She had not slept. Again. Her eyes were swollen, her body weak, her heart heavy with a dread so thick it felt like she was drowning in it. That was all it had taken for her life to be decided, to strip her of the little control she had left, to turn her into something she never chose to be, a bride. Wake up! Her aunt's voice tore through the thin curtain, separating Zara from the rest of the house. Zara was already awake. She hadn't closed her eyes once. I'm up, Ma, she said weakly. Then come out. We don't have all day. Zara pushed herself to sit up. Her body protested immediately, her limbs heavy, her head aching, her throat dry. For a moment, she just sat there, staring at nothing, trying to gather strength, trying to gather courage, trying not to fall apart. This is really happening. The thought hit her like a wave. Today was the day. There was no more time, no more delay, no miracle, no rescue. Zara, I'm coming. She called again, forcing herself to stand. Her legs trembled beneath her. Outside, the compound was already buzzing with activity. Women from nearby houses had gathered, their voices rising in chatter and laughter. Some carried bowls of food, others arranged chairs, while a few simply stood and watched, eager for the spectacle. Because that's what it was, a spectacle, not a celebration. There she is, one of the women said as Zara stepped out. Their eyes turned to her immediately, curious, judging, whispering, That's the girl. She looks so thin. Is that really what he's marrying? I heard he paid off a big debt for her. No. It's the uncle that owed him. Zara lowered her head. The whispers cut deeper than any slap. She wasn't a person to them. She was a story, a transaction, entertainment. Her aunt pushed through the small crowd and grabbed her arm. Why are you standing there like a statue? She snapped. Come inside. Zara followed silently. Inside, the air felt thick and suffocating. Sit, her aunt ordered, pointing to a small wooden stool. Zara obeyed. A woman she barely knew stepped forward, carrying a bundle of fabric. The gown, she said. Zara's chest tightened. Gown. The woman unfolded it, and for a moment silence filled the room. It was white, but not the kind of white that symbolized purity or beauty. It was old, worn, frayed at the edges. The lace was torn in places, the fabric slightly stained, as though it had lived a life before this one. Zara stared at it. This was her wedding dress. "It's good enough," her aunt said dismissively. "After all, what more does she need?" The women laughed lightly. Zara said nothing. What was there to say? "Stand up," the woman with the gown instructed. Zara stood. Her hands hung stiffly at her sides as they began dressing her, pulling, adjusting, tightening. The fabric felt rough against her skin, uncomfortable, heavy, like chains. "Lift your arm. Turn. Don't move." Zara obeyed every instruction like a puppet. Her mind felt far away, detached. When they were done, they stepped back. "Well," one of the women said, "she doesn't look too bad." Her aunt scoffed. "At least she won't embarrass us completely." Zara's eyes drifted toward a small mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. Slowly, she walked toward it, and then she saw herself. For a moment, she didn't recognize the girl staring back. The gown hung awkwardly on her frame, not quite fitting, not quite right. Her face looked pale beneath her dark skin, her eyes hollow, her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked like a bride, but not a happy one. She looked like someone being led to something she could not escape. A tear slipped down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. "No crying," her aunt snapped. "You'll ruin your face." "My face." Zara almost laughed. Was that what mattered? "Come," her aunt said. "It's time." Time. The word echoed in her head as she was led outside. The compound was now filled with people. Men stood in groups talking loudly. Women moved about with purpose. Children ran around laughing, unaware of the weight of what was happening. At the center of it all, a small space had been cleared. That was where the ceremony would take place. Zara's heart began to pound, loud, fast, relentless. She could see him now. Victor. He stood near the front, dressed in traditional attire, his expression calm, almost pleased. When his eyes met hers, he smiled again. Zara's stomach twisted violently. "Move," her aunt whispered harshly, nudging her forward. Each step felt like walking deeper into a nightmare. The crowd quieted slightly as she approached, all eyes on her, watching, waiting. She reached the center, stopped. The officiating elder began to speak. His voice was steady, formal, carrying across the gathering, but Zara didn't hear the words. Her ears rang, her chest tightened, her vision blurred slightly. She felt like she was floating, like she wasn't really there. "Do you take this man?" The words broke through the haze. Zara's heart slammed against her ribs. This is it. The moment. The point of no return. Her hands began to shake. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts. She looked around, at the faces, at the crowd, at her uncle, at her aunt. None of them looked at her with kindness or concern or love. Then she looked at Victor. He was watching her, confident, certain, as if she was already his. Something inside her snapped, not loudly, not violently, but completely. "No." The word rose from deep within her. "No." Her breathing quickened. "This is not my life." Her heart pounded harder. "This is not my choice." Her fingers curled into fists. "I don't belong here." "Answer," her aunt hissed from behind her. Zara's chest rose and fell rapidly. The elder repeated the question. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then Zara turned and ran. Gasps erupted instantly. "What is she doing? Hey! Stop her!" Her bare feet hit the ground hard as she sprinted forward, the torn gown tangling around her legs. "Zara!" her uncle roared, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. She ran past the crowd, past the compound, out onto the dusty road. Her heart raced wildly, her breath coming in desperate gasps. Behind her, shouting, chaos. Footsteps. "They're chasing me." The thought sent a surge of fear through her body, but she didn't slow down. She ran faster, the gown dragged, her feet slipped, her lungs burned, but she kept going because stopping meant losing everything. And, for the first time in her life, Zara chose herself. Even if it meant running into the unknown, even if it meant risking everything, she would rather run toward uncertainty than stay trapped in a life she never chose. The world blurred around her. Zara didn't know where she was going. She only knew one thing. She had to keep running. Her bare feet pounded against the dry, uneven road, kicking up dust behind her. The torn edges of her wedding gown dragged along the ground, snagging against stones and thorns, threatening to trip her with every step. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Her breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. Her chest burned. Her throat felt like it was on fire. Behind her voices, loud, angry, getting closer. "Catch her! Don't let her escape, Zara!" Her uncle's voice rose above the others, filled with fury. That alone sent a fresh surge of panic through her body. "She's still running." The thought echoed in her head, wild and frantic. She didn't dare look back. Not yet. If she looked back, she might slow down. If she slowed down, they would catch her, and if they caught her, her stomach twisted violently. "No," she whispered breathlessly. She pushed harder. The road stretched endlessly ahead of her, winding through the village like a cruel test of endurance. Small huts passed in flashes, villagers stepping out, startled by the sudden commotion. "What's happening? Why is she running like that? Isn't that the bride?" The whispers followed her, but she couldn't focus on them. All she could hear was the pounding of her heart. Her foot hit a sharp stone. Pain shot up her leg. She stumbled. For a split second, the world tilted. No! She caught herself just in time, regaining balance before she could fall. But the stumble cost her. The voices behind her grew louder, closer. "Faster!" someone shouted. Zara's chest tightened. "They're catching up." Fear clawed at her throat. She forced her legs to move faster even as they screamed in protest. Her lungs felt like they were collapsing. Her vision began to blur at the edges. Still, she ran. The village road narrowed as she moved farther away from the center, the houses becoming fewer, the path rougher. The sun beat down mercilessly now, its heat pressing against her skin, making every breath heavier. Sweat mixed with dust on her face. Tears blurred her vision. "I can't stop." Her thoughts came in fragments, broken, desperate. "I can't go back." Another step. "I won't go back." Another step. Her body felt like it was giving up, but her spirit refused. Then she heard it, closer than before. "Zara!" Her uncle. Too close. Her heart nearly stopped. Without thinking, she glanced back. Big mistake. The world seemed to slow. She saw them, her uncle, her aunt. A few men from the village, even some boys eager for the chase. They were running, hard, determined, and they were gaining on her. Her breath hitched violently. "No, no, no!" Panic surged through her veins like fire. She turned forward again and pushed herself even harder. Her legs felt like they might collapse at any second. Her chest tightened painfully. Her head spun. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. The road curved ahead. For a brief moment, she couldn't see what lay beyond it. Hope flickered weakly inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she could lose them. She reached the bend, turned sharply and froze. A car. Not just any car. A Rolls-Royce. It stood out like something unreal. Something that didn't belong in this dusty, forgotten place. Sleek. Shiny. Powerful. For a split second, Zara just stared. What? She had never seen anything like it up close. Her heart pounded wildly. A man stood beside it, tall, well-dressed, composed. He looked completely out of place, like the car. He didn't belong here. Zara's mind raced. "Help!" The word formed before she could think. Behind her, the voices were getting louder. "She went this way." Her heart slammed against her ribs. This was it, her only chance. Without hesitation, she ran toward him. Her steps were uneven now, her body barely holding together, but desperation pushed her forward. When she reached him, she didn't stop. She dropped to her knees, right there, in front of him. "Please!" She gasped, her voice shaking uncontrollably. The man's eyes widened slightly. "Please, help me!" She continued, tears streaming down her face. "They want to force me into marriage. Please, don't let them take me." Her hands trembled as she reached out, clutching at his trousers desperately. "I'll do anything. Just help me." The man looked down at her. For a moment, he said nothing. His gaze shifted past her, toward the road behind. The shouting grew louder. Then the figures appeared, her pursuers closing in. The man's expression changed. What had been calm turned sharp, focused. He looked back at Zara, really looked at her. Her torn gown, her trembling body, her tear-streaked face, her fear. Something in his eyes hardened. "Stand up," he said. Zara blinked, her heart racing. "Please, stand up," he repeated more firmly. She obeyed instantly, her legs shaky beneath her. The man moved quickly. He opened the car door. "Get in." Zara didn't hesitate. She rushed inside, her heart pounding wildly. The interior felt unreal. Soft leather, cool air, safety. For the first time since she started running, she felt something shift. Hope. The man walked around to the driver's side. Behind them, the shouting grew louder. Closer. "Stop!" "Hey!" Zara turned, her breath catching in her throat. Her uncle was almost there. Just a few more seconds. The man got into the car, closed the door, started the engine. The powerful hum filled the air. Her uncle reached out. Too late. The car sped forward. Dust exploded behind them as the Rolls-Royce surged down the road. The voices faded. The figures disappeared. And just like that, Zara was gone. She collapsed back into the seat, her body shaking uncontrollably. Her chest heaved as she struggled to catch her breath. Tears streamed down her face, not just from fear, but from something else. Relief. She was free, at least for now. The car didn't stop. It sped down the dusty road, leaving behind a trail of confusion, anger, and shouting voices that quickly faded into nothing. Inside the Rolls-Royce, there was silence. Heavy, unfamiliar, almost unreal. Zara sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her entire body trembling. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to steady her breathing, but it refused to calm. Her hands clutched the edge of the seat so tightly her knuckles turned pale. She didn't dare look at the man beside her. Not yet. "You're safe." The thought came quietly, uncertain, fragile. Her heart was still racing like she was being chased. Her ears rang with echoes of shouting. Her legs still felt like they were running. "You can breathe." The voice beside her was calm, deep, steady. Zara flinched slightly. She hadn't realized she had been holding her breath. Slowly, she inhaled. The air felt different, cool, clean. She exhaled shakily. "They're not here anymore," the man added. Zara nodded faintly, though she still couldn't bring herself to speak. Her eyes drifted toward the window. The village was disappearing behind them. The huts, the dusty road, the place she had known her entire life. She should have felt something. Sadness, loss, fear. But all she felt was emptiness. And beneath that, a quiet, growing sense of relief. "You're shaking." Zara hadn't noticed how obvious it was. She quickly pulled her hands into her lap, trying to hide the trembling. I'm fine," she whispered. The man didn't respond immediately. Then calmly, "No, you're not." Something about the way he said it, not harsh, not accusing, just honest, made her throat tighten. For a moment she thought she might start crying again, but she swallowed it down. She began, then stopped. Her voice felt stuck. Silence filled the car again. The man reached forward slightly and adjusted something. Cooler air flowed from the vents. Zara closed her eyes briefly as it touched her skin. She hadn't realized how hot she was, how exhausted, how close she had been to collapsing. "Drink." She opened her eyes. The man was holding out a bottle of water. She stared at it for a second, as if unsure it was real. Then slowly she took it. "Thank you," she whispered. Her hands trembled as she opened the bottle. She brought it to her lips and drank. The water was cold. It shocked her system. She drank faster, too fast. She coughed slightly. Slowly, the man said. She nodded, forcing herself to take smaller sips. When she finished, she held the bottle in her lap, her fingers still wrapped tightly around it. "Thank you," she said again, more clearly this time. The man gave a small nod. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, "Do you want to tell me what happened?" The question hung in the air. Zara stiffened. Her grip on the bottle tightened. Her mind immediately went back. The voices, the slaps, the words. "You belong to me now." Her chest tightened. She started. Her voice cracked. She closed her eyes briefly. "I was getting married," she said finally. The man glanced at her. "You ran away from your wedding?" There was no judgment in his tone, just curiosity. Zara shook her head weakly. "No, I was being forced to marry him." The words felt heavy as they left her mouth. "I didn't choose it," she added quickly, as if she needed him to understand that part most of all. "I figured," the man said calmly. Zara blinked. "You did." He nodded slightly, his eyes still on the road. "You don't look like someone running away from a happy life." Something about that made her chest ache. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Then the words began to come, slow at first, then faster. "My parents died when I was young," she said. "I've been living with my uncle and his wife." Her fingers tightened around the bottle again. They don't like me," she admitted. That's an understatement, she added quietly. The man remained silent, listening. I do everything, she continued. I cook, clean, farm. I barely eat sometimes. Her voice trembled. But I stayed, she said, because I had nowhere else to go. Pause. Then he came. Her breathing became uneven again. The man I was supposed to marry, she explained. My uncle owes him money. The words felt bitter, so he decided to give me to him instead. Silence filled the car. The man's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. Zara didn't notice. They didn't even ask me, she continued. They just decided. Her voice broke. The wedding was today. She let out a shaky breath. I tried to say no, she whispered, but they wouldn't listen. Her eyes filled with tears again. So I ran. The words came out soft but firm. I didn't know where I was going, she admitted. I just ran. She looked down at her hands. I thought they would catch me. Her voice dropped. I thought it was over. Silence. Then, you were right to run. Zara froze. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. His face was calm, composed, but his eyes, there was something there. Something strong, something certain. You were right, he repeated. Zara's chest tightened. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever told her she was right. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away this time. Thank you, she whispered. The man nodded once. Then, after a brief pause, my name is Damien. Zara blinked. Damien. The name felt important. I'm Zara, she said softly. I know, he replied. She frowned slightly. You heard them shouting your name, he added. Oh. A small silence settled again, but this one felt different, less heavy, less suffocating, safer. Zara leaned back slightly into the seat. Her body was still tired, still aching, but something inside her had shifted. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. She glanced at Damien again. Where are we going? She asked quietly. Damien didn't answer immediately. Then, somewhere safe. Zara let out a slow breath. Safe. The word wrapped around her like something warm, something she had almost forgotten existed. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, her body began to relax. Not completely, not fully, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to rest, enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life wasn't over. Maybe it was just beginning. The city crept in slowly. First, it was just the road changing, from dusty and uneven to smooth, wide, structured. Zara noticed it immediately. Even with her heavy eyelids and exhausted body, she could feel the difference beneath the car. No more bumps, no more jolts, just movement, steady, controlled. She shifted slightly in her seat, her fingers still wrapped loosely around the now half-empty bottle of water. Her breathing had finally calmed. Not completely, but enough that her chest no longer felt like it was being crushed. Outside the window, the scenery began to change. The small huts disappeared, replaced by larger buildings, painted houses, shops, people dressed in ways she wasn't used to. Zara blinked slowly. She had been to the outskirts of a town before, once, a long time ago, but this was different. This is, she murmured softly, almost to herself. The city, Damien finished. His voice was calm, but there was something else beneath it, something observant. He had been watching her reactions. Zara swallowed. It's big, she said. Damien let out a quiet breath that almost sounded like a small laugh. You'll get used to it. Will I? The thought came quickly, uncertain. Zara didn't respond. Her eyes remained fixed on the window as the car moved deeper into the city. Cars passed by. People walked with purpose. Everything felt fast, alive, overwhelming. It was nothing like the village, nothing at all. And yet she wasn't afraid. Not the way she thought she would be, because for the first time, the unknown didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a possibility. Still, a small voice whispered in the back of her mind, "What happens now?" She shifted slightly in her seat again. Her fingers tightened around the bottle. She had escaped, but escape wasn't the same as having a future. She had nowhere to go, no money, no family, no plan. Her chest tightened slightly again. "Damien," she said quietly. He glanced at her briefly. "Yes." Her voice hesitated. Where are you taking me?" The question hung in the air. Damien didn't answer immediately. Instead, he focused on the road for a few seconds. Then, "My home." Zara blinked. "Your home." He nodded. "You need somewhere safe to stay." he said simply. Her heart skipped. Safe. The word again, but this time came with something else. Uncertainty. She shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to be a burden, she said quickly. Damien raised an eyebrow slightly. You just escaped a forced marriage, he said. I think you're allowed to exist without worrying about being a burden for at least one day. Zara blinked. She didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not with logic. Not with fairness. She started, then stopped. Her voice softened. I don't want to cause problems for you. Damien shook his head slightly. You won't. The certainty in his voice surprised her. How do you know? She asked. He glanced at her again. Because I don't invite problems into my life, he said calmly. And I chose to help you. Zara stared at him. There it was again, that quiet confidence. He didn't sound unsure. He didn't sound hesitant. He sounded like someone who meant every word he said, and for some reason that made her feel safe. She looked away again, back at the window. The buildings were getting bigger now, taller, more polished. Then the car slowed. Zara straightened slightly. They turned off the main road. The noise of the city faded. The environment changed again. Now it was quieter, cleaner, more exclusive. Large houses stood behind tall gates, security posts, well-kept lawns. Everything looked expensive. Zara's stomach tightened. Where are we? The car approached a large black gate. It opened automatically. Zara's breath caught. The Rolls-Royce drove in, and that's when she saw it. The house. No, not a house. A mansion. It stood tall and elegant, its structure grand and intimidating, yet somehow beautiful. The walls gleamed under the sunlight, the windows reflecting the sky like mirrors. Zara froze. What? Her voice trailed off. She couldn't finish the sentence. Damien parked the car smoothly, then turned off the engine. Silence settled, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt unreal. Zara didn't move. She couldn't. Her eyes remained fixed on the mansion. You're home, Damien said. Home. The word hit her differently this time. This didn't look like anything she had ever called home. Not even close. I can't stay here, she said suddenly. Damien turned to her. Why not? She shook her head quickly. This place, it's too much. I don't belong here. There it was. The truth. Damien studied her for a moment, then said quietly, Do you think you belonged where you came from? The question hit her like a slap. Zara went silent. Her throat tightened. No, she admitted softly. Damien nodded. Then maybe it's time you stop deciding where you don't belong, he said, and start giving yourself a chance to exist somewhere better. Zara's eyes filled with tears again, not from pain, from something else, something unfamiliar. She didn't have a word for it, but it felt warm, safe. She nodded slowly. Okay. Damien gave a small nod in return, then stepped out of the car. Zara hesitated for a moment, then followed. The moment her feet touched the ground, reality hit her again. This was real. She was here, a stranger's mansion, a billionaire's world, and somehow she was part of it now. Damien walked ahead, but not too fast. He paused slightly, making sure she was following. Zara noticed that. He wasn't rushing her. He wasn't dragging her. He was allowing her. That alone meant more than she could explain. They approached the entrance. The doors opened, and as Zara stepped inside, she realized something. Her old life, the pain, the fear, the control, it was behind her now. Not gone, not forgotten, but no longer holding her in place. And standing there in that moment, Zara took her first real step into freedom. The moment Zara stepped inside the mansion, she stopped completely. Her feet refused to move. The world around her felt too different, too clean, too quiet, too perfect. The floor beneath her was smooth, so smooth it reflected light like water. Joie. The air smelled faintly of something soft and pleasant, nothing like smoke or dust or sweat. Everything gleamed. Everything felt untouched. Zara's fingers instinctively tightened around the edge of her torn wedding gown. Don't dirty anything. The thought came quickly, automatically. She stood near the entrance, afraid to take another step, afraid her very presence might stain something. Damien noticed. He had already walked a few steps ahead before realizing she wasn't beside him anymore. He turned, and there she was, frozen. Zara. She looked up at him slowly. I don't think I should go further, she said softly. Damien frowned slightly. Why? She hesitated, then almost embarrassed. I might make the place dirty. For a moment, Damien just looked at her, not with confusion, not with judgment, but with something deeper, something that understood more than she had said. You won't, he said simply. Zara shook her head. My clothes, she murmured, glancing down at herself. My feet, I've been running. You're not a stain, Damien said. The words were calm, firm, unarguable. Zara froze. Her breath caught slightly. No one had ever corrected her like that before. No one had ever separated her from the dirt she carried. You're a person, Damien continued, and you're allowed to walk into a house. Her throat tightened. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. Damien gave a small nod in return and turned again, walking further inside. This time, Zara followed. Each step felt strange. Her bare feet touched the polished floor carefully, almost as if she expected it to reject her. But it didn't. Nothing happened. No shouting. No harsh words. No slap. Just silence and space. So much space. Her eyes moved around slowly, taking everything in. The high ceilings, the wide staircase, the soft lighting, the furniture, clean, arranged, untouched. Felt like a place from a story, not something real. Sit, Damien said, gesturing toward a couch. Zara looked at it, then back at him. Are you sure? He raised an eyebrow slightly. Yes. She hesitated, then slowly, carefully, she walked over and sat. The moment she did, she stiffened. It was soft. Too soft. Her body sank slightly into it, and she instinctively tried to sit up straighter, as if she didn't deserve the comfort. Damien noticed again, but this time he didn't say anything. Instead, he reached for his phone. I'll call someone to help you get cleaned up, he said. Zara's head snapped up. Cleaned up? He nodded. You've had a long day. That was an understatement. I can manage, she said quickly. Damien looked at her. I know you can, he replied, but you don't have to. The words settled quietly between them. Zara lowered her gaze. That sentence alone felt heavier than anything else. You don't have to. She had spent her entire life having to endure, having to work, having to survive. Now someone was telling her she didn't have to. Felt unreal. A few minutes later, a woman entered the room. She was neatly dressed, calm, and respectful. Sir, she greeted. Take her to one of the guest rooms, Damien said. Make sure she has everything she needs. The woman nodded. Of course. She turned to Zara. This way, please. Zara stood slowly. She glanced at Damien. Thank you, she said softly. He gave a small nod. You're safe here. Those words followed her as she walked away. The room she was taken to didn't feel real either. It was larger than her entire living space back in the village. The bed alone looked like something meant for royalty. Neatly made, soft-looking, inviting. Zara stood at the doorway, frozen again. You can come in, the woman said gently. Zara stepped inside slowly. Her eyes moved around the room. Closet, mirror, bathroom, curtains, everything perfect. Your bath is ready, the woman said. Zara blinked. Bath? The woman smiled slightly. Yes. Zara hesitated, then nodded. The bathroom was something she had never experienced before. Clean tiles, running water, warm steam. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Then slowly she stepped forward, removed the torn gown, and for a moment she just stood there, looking at herself. Her body carried marks, faint scars, calloused hands, bruises that hadn't fully healed, evidence of a life lived in hardship. Her chest tightened. Then she stepped into the water, and everything changed. The warmth wrapped around her instantly. She gasped softly. Felt good, too good. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to just stand there. Not working, not rushing, not afraid, just existing. The water washed over her, carrying away the dust, the sweat, the dirt, but also something deeper, the tension, the fear, the weight. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they felt different. Not just pain, relief. When she stepped out, everything felt lighter. The woman had left clothes for her, clean, soft, beautiful. Zara touched the fabric gently. Is this for me? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, the woman replied. Zara hesitated, then slowly, she put them on. They fit perfectly. She walked to the mirror and stopped. The girl staring back at her was different. Still her, but softer, cleaner, alive in a way she hadn't seen before. Her hair, once dull and uneven, now framed her face more gently. Her skin looked brighter, her eyes still tired but no longer empty. Zara reached out slowly, touched her reflection. Is this really me? The question lingered. For the first time in her life, she didn't look like someone surviving. She looked like someone becoming. Later that evening, she returned downstairs. Damien was seated in the living room. He looked up as she approached, and for a moment, he paused. Not dramatically, not obviously, but just enough. Zara noticed. She shifted slightly. Is it okay? She asked. Damien nodded. You look better. Simple, honest. Zara gave a small nod. Thank you. A quiet silence followed. Then, what happens now? She asked. Damien leaned back slightly. You rest, he said. And when you're ready, we figure out what you want to do next. Zara blinked. What I want? He nodded. Yes. The concept felt foreign, unfamiliar, almost impossible. She looked down at her hands. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Damien didn't seem surprised. That's okay, he said, and for once it really felt like it was. The first night in the mansion felt unreal. Zara lay on the bed, her body stiff, her eyes wide open staring at the ceiling. She hadn't moved for what felt like hours. The bed was too soft, too comfortable, too unfamiliar. Every time she shifted, the mattress adjusted with her, as if it were trying to hold her gently instead of resisting her weight. It made her uneasy. She turned slightly onto her side, then back again. Sleep didn't come. Not because she wasn't tired. She was exhausted. Her body ached in places she didn't even know existed. Her mind felt heavy, like it had carried too much for too long. But her body didn't trust the peace. Every small sound made her alert. The faint hum of electricity, the distant closing of a door, the whisper of air moving through the room. Her heart would jump, her muscles would tense. What if something happens? The thought came again and again. What if this was temporary? What if someone came in and told her to leave? What if her uncle somehow found her? What if Zara sat up suddenly? Her chest rose and fell quickly. No, she whispered to herself. She wrapped her arms around her knees, pulling them close to her chest. You're safe. The words felt strange in her mouth. She tried again. You're safe. This time she held on to it a little longer. Her breathing slowly began to steady. She glanced around the room. Everything was still, calm. No shouting, no footsteps rushing toward her, no angry voices calling her name, just silence. And for once, it didn't feel dangerous. Felt quiet. She lay back down slowly, and eventually, somewhere between fear and exhaustion, sleep came. Morning arrived gently. No shouting, no banging, no harsh voice dragging her from rest. Just light. Soft sunlight filtered through the curtains, spreading across the room in a quiet, golden glow. Zara stirred slightly. For a moment, she didn't move. She just lay there, listening. Nothing. Her heart didn't race. Her body didn't tense. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The ceiling, the soft light, the stillness came back to her. I'm here. The words escaped her lips in a whisper. Not the village, not her uncle's house. Here, the mansion. Damien. Freedom. She sat up slowly, her movements cautious, as if she expected something to interrupt her, but nothing did. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her feet touched the floor. Warm, clean. She stood. No one shouted. She took a step. Nothing happened. Another step. Still nothing. A strange feeling began to spread through her chest, like unfamiliar peace. Later that morning, she found herself in the kitchen, not because she had been told to go there, but because she didn't know what else to do. The space was large, organized, and spotless. Nothing like the small, smoky kitchen she was used to. She stood near the counter, unsure. Good morning. Zara turned quickly. It was the same woman from yesterday. Oh, good morning, Zara replied softly. Did you sleep well? Zara hesitated. I think so. The woman smiled slightly. That's good. There was no judgment, no hidden meaning, just a simple question. Zara found that strange. What is your name? The woman asked. Zara. I'm Grace, she said. Zara nodded. A small silence followed. Then, Are you hungry? Grace asked. Zara froze. Hungry? The question felt loaded. She was always hungry, but admitting it had never been safe. I'm fine, she said automatically. Grace tilted her head slightly. You don't have to say that here. Zara blinked. I'm not forcing you to eat, Grace continued gently. I'm asking if you want to. The difference hit her immediately. Want, not need, not must. Want. Zara looked down at her hands. Then quietly, yes. Grace smiled. Good. The food was simple, but to Zara felt like a feast. Warm, fresh, well-prepared. She sat at the table staring at it for a moment. Go on, Grace said. Zara nodded. Then she began to eat. Slowly at first, then faster. She stopped herself halfway, embarrassed. I'm sorry, she said quickly. Grace frowned slightly. For what? I was eating too fast. Grace shook her head. You're eating, she said. That's all. Zara stared at her, no scolding, no criticism, just acceptance. Her chest tightened again. She continued eating, but this time she didn't apologize. Days passed in small, quiet moments. Zara began to adjust. Not completely, but slowly. She woke up without fear. She ate without rushing. She moved without being ordered, and each of those things felt like learning how to live all over again. One afternoon, she found herself outside. The garden stretched wide and beautiful, filled with green grass and carefully tended flowers. Zara walked slowly along the path. Her fingers brushed lightly against the leaves, soft, alive. She smiled. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was real. Getting used to it? She turned. Damien. He stood a few steps behind her. Zara nodded slightly. I think so. He walked closer. You look better, he said. She hesitated. I feel different, she admitted. How? Zara thought for a moment. Like I can breathe. Damien nodded. That's a good start. A small silence settled between them. Then, thank you, she said. He looked at her. For what? For everything, she replied. Her voice was steady, honest. Damien held her gaze for a moment. Then you don't owe me anything, he said. Zara frowned slightly. I know, she said, but I still want to say it. He nodded once. All right. As he turned to leave, Zara spoke again. Damien, he paused. Yes. She hesitated. Then I don't want to just stay here and do nothing. He turned fully this time. What do you want to do? There it was again, that question. Zara looked down briefly, then back up. I want to work, she said. Damien studied her. Work? She nodded. Yes, I don't want to just exist here. I want to earn my place. Damien was quiet for a moment. Then, you already have a place here, he said. Zara shook her head gently. I know, but I still want to do something. Her voice softened. I need to feel like I matter. That made him pause. He saw it then, not just her words, but what was behind them. A girl who had been made to feel invisible her entire life. A girl who didn't yet know her worth. All right, he said finally. Zara's eyes lit up slightly. Really? He nodded. We'll find something that suits you. Relief spread across her face. Thank you. As she stood there watching him walk away, Zara realized something. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning to live. And slowly, piece by piece, she was becoming someone new. Change didn't arrive loudly. It didn't announce itself or demand attention. Instead, it slipped into Zara's life quietly. Like the way she no longer flinched when someone called her name. Like the way she began to walk through the house without hesitation. Like the way her laughter, once non-existent, started to appear in small, unexpected moments. It had been weeks since she ran, weeks since she stepped into a life she never imagined. And somehow, she was still there, still safe, still wanted. It started with simple things. Good morning, Zara. Damien said it one day as he passed through the living room. Zara looked up slightly surprised. Good morning, she replied. That was all, but it stayed with her because no one had ever greeted her like that before, not as an equal, not with calm familiarity. Then there were the meals. Sometimes Damien would sit at the table while she ate, not watching her, not judging her, just there. First, Zara found it strange. Do you always sit while people eat? She asked one day. Damien glanced at her. No. Then why now? He shrugged slightly. I don't like eating alone. Zara blinked. That answer caught her off guard. You could eat with your staff, she said. I could, he agreed. A pause. But I prefer this. Zara looked down at her plate, trying to hide the small smile forming on her lips. Then came the conversations. They didn't happen all at once. They built slowly. First, it was just small talk. Did you sleep well? Yes. Do you like the food? Yes. Short answers, safe answers, but Damien never pushed. And because he didn't push, Zara began to open up, little by little. One evening, they sat outside in the garden. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, the air calm and gentle. Zara sat on the bench, her hands resting in her lap. Damien stood nearby, looking out at the horizon. "It's quiet here," she said. Damien nodded. "That's why I like it." Zara tilted her head slightly. "You don't like noise?" He considered the question. "I deal with noise all day," he said. "People, business, decisions, everything loud in its own way." He glanced at her. "So, when I'm home, I prefer silence." Zara nodded slowly. "I understand that." He raised an eyebrow. "You do?" She looked out at the garden. "In my case, silence was the only place I could think." A pause. "When no one was shouting," she added quietly. Damien's expression softened slightly. He didn't say anything, but he understood. Days turned into something more comfortable. Zara began helping around the house, not because she was forced to, but because she chose to. She learned new things, proper cooking techniques, how to arrange things neatly, how to move without fear. Grace helped her, patient, kind. And Damien noticed everything. One afternoon, Zara was in the kitchen carefully slicing vegetables. Her movements were focused, precise. Damien leaned against the doorway watching her for a moment. "You're improving," he said. Zara jumped slightly, then turned. "Oh, I didn't see you." "I noticed," he replied. She smiled faintly. "I'm trying." "It shows." She looked down at what she was doing. "I like it," she admitted. "Cooking?" She nodded. "It feels peaceful." Damien studied her. "You're not just doing it because you think you have to." Zara shook her head. "No." Then, after a brief pause, "I used to hate it." Damien frowned slightly. "Why?" She let out a small breath. "Because it was never a choice." A silence settled between them. "Then it is now," he said. Zara looked at him, and for a moment something passed between them, something quiet, but meaningful. That night, something shifted. They were sitting in the living room. A soft light filled the space. The world outside had gone still. Zara sat on one end of the couch, Damien on the other. "Oh, oui, the center." There was no tension, no awkwardness, just presence. "Can I ask you something?" Zara said. Damien looked at her. "Yes." She hesitated. "Then, why did you help me?" The question had been sitting in her heart for days. Damien didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back slightly, considering. "Do you want the simple answer?" he asked. "Or the honest one?" Zara frowned slightly. "The honest one." He nodded, then said quietly, "Because you looked like someone who had no one." The words hit her deeply. "And I didn't like that," he added. Zara's throat tightened. "You didn't even know me," she said softly. "I didn't need to," he replied. A silence followed. "Then I'm glad you stopped," she whispered. Damien held her gaze. "So am I." Time passed, and somewhere between shared meals, quiet conversations, and peaceful evenings, something began to grow, not loudly, but steadily. It showed in the way Damien started noticing the smallest details, the way Zara smiled when she was truly relaxed, the way her eyes lit up when she learned something new, the way she hesitated before speaking, then spoke anyway. And it showed in the way Zara began to look at him, not just with gratitude, but with something softer, deeper. One evening, everything changed. They were in the garden again, the sky dark, the air cool. Zara sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Damien stood in front of her this time. There was something different about him, something more serious. "Zara," he said. She looked up. "Yes." He hesitated, not long, but enough. "Then, I think I'm falling in love with you." The world seemed to stop. Zara's breath caught. Her heart skipped. "What?" she whispered. Damien held her gaze. "I didn't plan it," he said, "and I didn't expect it." His voice was calm but honest. "But it happened." Silence filled the space between them. Zara's mind raced. Love her? Felt impossible. "I don't," she started, then stopped. Her chest tightened. "I don't know how to do that," she admitted. Damien's expression softened. You don't have to know, he said. She looked at him, uncertainty in her eyes. What if I'm not enough? She whispered. The question came from a place she hadn't fully healed yet. Damien stepped closer. Then I'll remind you until you believe you are, he said. Zara's eyes filled with tears, not from pain but from something overwhelming, something she had never experienced before. She took a slow breath. Then, I think, she began softly. Her voice steadied. I think I'm falling in love with you too. A quiet smile touched Damien's lips, and in that moment, two broken paths began to walk together. The news came gently, but it landed heavily. I want you to meet my family. Damien said it casually, like it was a simple thing, like asking someone to take a walk. But for Zara, it wasn't simple. Felt like standing at the edge of something unknown. Her hands stilled where they rested in her lap. Your family, she repeated softly. Damien nodded. Yes. Zara swallowed. Her chest tightened slightly. Families. That word alone carried weight for her. Memories. Pain. Fear. Rejection. What if they don't like me? She asked quietly. The question slipped out before she could stop it. Damien didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back slightly, studying her. Why wouldn't they? He asked. Zara let out a small, uncertain breath. I don't know, she admitted, but she did know. Because she had lived it. She looked down at her hands. I'm not like you, she said. Damien frowned slightly. What does that mean? Zara hesitated. Then, I didn't grow up like this, she said. I don't know how to talk like people in your world. I don't know what to say. What if I embarrass you? The words came out quickly now, unfiltered. What if they look at me and see where I came from? Her voice softened at the end. What if that's all they see? Silence filled the room. Damien leaned forward slightly. Look at me, he said. Zara hesitated, then slowly she lifted her gaze. His eyes were steady. You think I don't know where you came from? He asked. She blinked. You told me your story. He continued. I've seen your strength. I've seen how far you've come in such a short time. His voice softened. Why would I be embarrassed by that? Zara's throat tightened. I'm not ashamed of you, he said. The words settled deep. And neither will they be. There was certainty in his voice. Not hope. Not assumption. Certainty. Zara held his gaze. For a moment, she wanted to believe him completely, but fear still lingered. What if you're wrong? She whispered. Damien didn't hesitate. Then we leave, he said simply. Zara blinked. Just like that? He nodded. Yes. Something about that answer made her chest feel lighter. He wasn't forcing her into anything. He wasn't asking her to prove herself. He was choosing her. First. Always. Zara let out a slow breath. Okay, she said. The day came sooner than she expected. Zara stood in front of the mirror in her room, her hands slightly trembling as she adjusted the dress she was wearing. It was simple, elegant, soft fabric that flowed gently around her, but to her felt like too much. Do I look okay? She asked. Grace stood behind her, smiling. You look beautiful, she said. Zara glanced at her reflection again. The girl staring back at her looked composed, put together, but inside she felt like she might fall apart. I'm nervous, she admitted. Grace stepped closer. That's normal, she said gently. Zara nodded. I just don't want to do anything wrong. Grace smiled softly. You won't. Zara let out a small breath. I hope so. When she stepped outside, Damien was already waiting. He turned as he heard her, and for a moment, he paused. Not dramatically, but enough. Zara noticed. What? She asked, suddenly self-conscious. Damien shook his head slightly. Nothing. A small pause. You look beautiful. Zara's cheeks warmed slightly. Thank you. The drive felt shorter than she expected, too short. Her hands rested tightly in her lap, her fingers intertwined as she tried to steady herself. Her mind raced with possibilities. What if they don't smile? What if they're polite but cold? What if they see through me? She exhaled slowly. Damien glanced at her. You're thinking too much. Zara gave a small, nervous smile. I can't help it. He nodded slightly. I know. Then, you don't have to be perfect. Zara looked at him. You just have to be yourself. She held his gaze. That's the part I'm worried about, she admitted. Damien smiled faintly. That's the part I'm not. The car slowed, then stopped. Zara's breath caught. They had arrived. The house stood tall before them. Another mansion, different from Damien's, but just as grand. Her heart began to race again. "This is it," she whispered. Damien stepped out of the car, then walked around to her side. He opened the door and held out his hand. Zara stared at it for a moment, then slowly she took it. His grip was steady, warm, grounding. Together, they walked toward the house. The doors opened and everything seemed to slow down. Inside, people waited. His family. Zara's heart pounded loudly in her chest. Damien stepped forward. "Everyone," he said calmly, "this is Zara." Silence. A brief moment where everything felt suspended. Then a woman stepped forward. Elegant, graceful, warm eyes. Damien's mother. She smiled. And, just like that, the tension broke. "You're welcome here," she said. Zara blinked. She hadn't expected that. Not so quickly. Not so genuinely. "Thank you, Ma," she said softly. The woman stepped closer, then she embraced her. Zara froze. Her body stiffened instinctively, then slowly she relaxed. No one had hugged her like that in years, not with warmth. Not without expectation. Her chest tightened. "Come," Damien's mother said gently. "You must be tired." The room came alive after that. Damien's siblings greeted her, smiling, curious, friendly. They asked questions. "Where are you from? What do you like? How did you meet Damien?" Zara answered carefully at first. But as time passed, she began to relax. They laughed. They joked. And for the first time, Zara didn't feel like an outsider. Then she noticed him, Damien's father. He had been watching quietly from a distance, observing, measuring. Zara's heart skipped. This was the moment, the one that mattered most. He stepped forward slowly. The room quieted slightly. He stood in front of her. Zara lowered her gaze respectfully. "Good afternoon, sir," she said softly. Pause. Then, "Look at me," he said. Her heart pounded. Slowly she lifted her gaze. His eyes met hers, sharp, but not unkind. He studied her for a moment. Then, "You have good manners," he said. Zara blinked. "Yes, sir." Another pause. Then, "You've been through a lot." Her breath caught. She hadn't expected that. Not from him. She nodded slightly. "Yes, sir." He held her gaze for a moment longer. Then he nodded and stepped back. "That's enough for me," he said. The room relaxed again. Zara exhaled slowly. She didn't fully understand what had just happened, but she felt it. She had been seen and accepted. Later that evening, as they prepared to leave, Damien's mother held her hand. "You're always welcome here," she said. Zara smiled softly. "Thank you." As they drove away, Zara leaned back in the seat. Her body felt lighter, her heart fuller. She turned to Damien. "They liked me," she said, almost in disbelief. Damien smiled slightly. "I told you they would." Zara shook her head softly. "I didn't believe you." He glanced at her. "I know." She smiled, but this time there was no fear behind it. Only something new, something warm, something real. For the first time, Zara felt like she belonged somewhere, and this time no one was going to take that away from her. The evening air was calm, soft, almost too peaceful for the weight of what had just happened. Zara sat quietly in the back seat of the car, her hands resting gently in her lap. Her fingers traced absent patterns against the fabric of her dress, her thoughts drifting between disbelief and quiet wonder. "They liked me." The words still didn't feel real. She had expected hesitation, judgment, distance, but instead she had been welcomed, embraced, seen. Her chest tightened slightly, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from something warmer, something unfamiliar, belonging. She glanced at Damien, who sat beside her, calm as always, his gaze fixed ahead. "You knew," she said softly. Damien turned slightly. "Knew what?" "That they would accept me." He gave a small shrug. "I had a feeling." Zara smiled faintly. "A strong feeling." Damien didn't deny it. "I know my family," he said simply. A silence settled between them, comfortable. Then, "They're nothing like mine," Zara said quietly. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Damien's expression softened slightly. "I know," he replied. Zara looked down, her fingers stilled. I kept thinking, she continued, her voice low. What if they look at me the way my aunt used to? Pause. Like I'm not enough. Damien turned fully toward her now. You are more than enough, he said. The certainty in his voice didn't waver. Zara swallowed. I'm starting to believe that, she admitted. And that was the truth. When they arrived back at the mansion, the night had fully settled. The world outside was quiet, still. But inside, something was about to shift. They had barely stepped into the living room when a voice called out, Damien! Zara turned. Damien's father. He stood near the far end of the room, his posture straight, his presence calm but commanding. Damien nodded slightly. Father. Zara instinctively lowered her gaze. Good evening, sir, she said respectfully. He acknowledged her with a slight nod. Good evening, Zara. There was no coldness in his tone, but there was seriousness, the kind that made you pay attention. Sit, he said. They did. Zara sat carefully, her back straight, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Damien's father remained standing for a moment. Then slowly he sat across from them. Silence filled the room, not uncomfortable, but deliberate. Then, you care about her, he said, looking at Damien. It wasn't a question. Damien didn't hesitate. Yes. His father nodded once. And you, he said, turning his gaze to Zara. Care about him? Zara's heart skipped. She lifted her eyes slightly. Yes, sir. Her voice was soft but steady. Another nod, then, good. Pause. But that is not enough. The words landed firmly. Zara felt her chest tighten slightly. Damien leaned forward. What do you mean? His father clasped his hands together. In life, he began. Love is important, but it is not the only thing that builds a lasting union. Zara listened closely. You must also have respect, he continued. Understanding, and most importantly, honor. The word lingered. Honor. Zara's fingers tightened slightly in her lap. You have brought her into your world, his father said. You have given her safety. You have given her a voice. He paused. But you must not forget where she comes from. Zara's breath caught. Her heart began to beat faster. We haven't, Damien said. His father raised a hand slightly. I'm not accusing you, he said calmly. I am reminding you. Pause. Before you take her fully into your life, you must go to her family. The room fell silent. Zara froze. Her body went still. Her heart dropped. No. The word echoed in her mind instantly. No. Her uncle. Her aunt. That house. That village. The memories rushed back all at once. The shouting. The slaps. The fear. Her chest tightened painfully. I don't... She began, her voice barely above a whisper. Damien turned to her immediately. Zara? She shook her head slightly. I don't want to go back there. The words came out fragile, honest. His father watched her carefully. I understand, he said. Zara looked up, surprised. You've been hurt there, he continued. She nodded slowly. Yes, sir. Pause. But this is not about them, he said. It is about you. Zara frowned slightly. Me? He nodded. If you walk into that place again, he said, it will not be as the girl they mistreated. His voice deepened slightly. You will walk in as someone who has risen above it. Zara's breath caught. You will stand before them not as a victim, but as a woman who has chosen her own life. Silence. Heavy. Powerful. Zara felt something shift inside her. Not fully, not completely, but something. And we will be with you, he added. That mattered, more than she expected. You won't face them alone. Zara's eyes filled with tears, not from fear, from something else. Strength. But still, they tried to force me into marriage, she said quietly. They didn't care what I wanted. Her voice trembled slightly. What if they try to stop me again? Damien spoke immediately. They won't. His tone was firm, certain. I won't let that happen. She looked at him and believed him, but fear still lingered. Damien's father leaned forward slightly. Sometimes, he said, we must return to the places that broke us. Not to relive the pain, but to take back our power. Zara swallowed. The words sank deep. You deserve closure, he added. Closure. The word echoed in her mind. She had never thought about it like that. To her, the village was something to escape, something to forget, but now felt like something she needed to face. Not for them, but for herself. A long silence followed. Zara looked down at her hands. Then slowly she lifted her gaze. "I'm scared," she admitted. Damien reached for her hand. "I know." She held his hand tightly. "But," she continued, her voice steadied, "I don't want to run anymore." That was new. That was growth. Damien's father nodded. "Good." Zara took a deep breath. Then, "I'll go." The words felt heavy, but also right. Damien squeezed her hand gently. "We'll go together." Zara nodded, and in that moment the past and the present began to move toward each other, and soon they would collide. The morning of the journey arrived with a strange kind of stillness. Zara stood by the large window in her room, her hands resting lightly against the glass as she looked out at the quiet city beyond. The sun was just beginning to rise, soft, golden, calm. But inside her, nothing felt calm. Her heart had been restless all night, her mind replaying memories she had tried to bury. The village, the house, her uncle, her aunt, the wedding. She closed her eyes briefly. For a moment, she could almost hear it again. "Catch her. Don't let her escape." Her chest tightened. She inhaled slowly. "You're not that girl anymore." The words came out quietly, but firmly. She opened her eyes and looked at her reflection in the glass. She looked different, stronger, but the memories were still there. And today, she would face them. A soft knock came at the door. "Come in," she said. The door opened. Damien stepped in. He paused when he saw her. "You're awake already." Zara nodded. "I couldn't sleep much." Damien walked closer. "That makes two of us." A small silence settled between them. Then, "Are you ready?" he asked gently. Zara hesitated, then nodded. "I think so." Damien studied her for a moment. "You don't have to pretend," he said. "If you're not ready, we can wait." Zara shook her head. "No," she said. "If I don't do it now, I might never do it." That was the truth. Fear had a way of growing if left alone, and she was done letting fear control her. Damien gave a small nod. "All right." By the time they stepped outside, everything was ready, and for a moment Zara forgot how to breathe. Cars, not one, not two. Convoy, luxury cars lined up in perfect formation, their polished surfaces reflecting the morning sun. Men in suits stood nearby, composed, alert. Everything about the scene screamed power, wealth, authority. Zara stared. "This is for us?" she asked softly. Damien nodded. "We're not going back quietly." Her heart skipped, and suddenly she understood. This wasn't just a visit. It was a statement. The journey felt different this time. Not like the frantic escape that had brought her to the city. This time, there was no panic, no running, just movement, steady, intentional. Zara sat beside Damien, her hands resting calmly in her lap, but her eyes remained fixed on the road ahead. As the city slowly gave way to familiar terrain, her chest tightened again. The trees, the dry paths, the open land. It was all the same, and yet she wasn't. "Are you okay?" Damien asked. Zara nodded slowly. "Yes." Pause. "I'm just remembering." Damien reached for her hand. She held on to it tightly, grounding herself. As the convoy approached the village, the reaction was immediate. Children were the first to notice. They stopped their play, stared, then ran. "Cars! Big cars! Come and see!" Their voices echoed through the village. Within minutes, people began to gather, men, women, elders, all drawn by the spectacle, because nothing like this had ever entered their village before. The convoy moved slowly now, deliberately, like it wanted to be seen. And it was. Every eye followed, every whisper spread. Who are they? Why are they here? Is it politicians? No. This is different. Zara watched it all through the window. Her heart pounded. This was it. No turning back now. The cars came to a stop right in front of a house Zara knew too well. Her uncle's house. The same cracked walls, the same worn roof. Nothing had changed, but everything had. The doors of the cars opened one by one. Men stepped out, then Damien, then his father. Finally, Zara. The moment her feet touched the ground, the world seemed to pause. Someone gasped. "It's her." Another voice. "Zara!" Whispers spread like wildfire. "She came back." "Is that really her?" "Look at her clothes." Zara stood still. She could feel every eye on her. But this time she didn't lower her gaze. She didn't shrink. She stood tall. Then the door of the house opened. Her uncle stepped out. He froze completely. His eyes widened as they landed on her. Disbelief, shock, confusion, all at once. "Zara," he said slowly. Her aunt appeared behind him and she froze too. What is this?" her aunt whispered. They looked at the cars, at the men, at Damien, then back at Zara like they couldn't understand what they were seeing. Zara took a step forward, just one, but it felt like crossing an entire lifetime. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. "I came back," she said. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Her uncle swallowed. "What is the meaning of this?" he asked, his voice no longer as strong as it used to be. Before Zara could respond, Damien stepped forward, calm, confident. "We're here to speak with you." The authority in his voice shifted the atmosphere instantly. Her uncle straightened slightly, trying to regain control. "And who are you?" he asked. Damien didn't flinch. "My name is Damien." Pause. "I intend to marry Zara." The words landed like thunder. Gasps spread through the crowd. Her uncle's face changed from confusion to shock. "To marry?" he repeated. Damien's father stepped forward. "We are here to do things properly," he said. "With respect." Her uncle looked overwhelmed. His eyes moved between them, the cars, the men, the presents, then back to Zara. She met his gaze without fear, without hesitation, and in that moment he realized something. The girl he once controlled was gone. Zara stood there, strong, unshaken, and for the first time in her life she wasn't standing in that compound as someone powerless. She was standing there as someone who had returned not to beg, not to obey, but to claim her life. And the village would never forget what happened next. The air in the compound had changed. What had once been a place of control now felt like a stage. And everyone, from the smallest child peeking from behind a doorway to the oldest elder leaning on a walking stick, was watching. Watching Zara. Watching the men who had arrived with her. Watching the shift in power they didn't fully understand but could feel. Zara stood still, her posture steady, her chin slightly raised, not in arrogance, but in quiet strength. Her uncle, however, struggled to find his footing. His eyes darted between Damien, his father, the convoy outside, and then back to Zara. "What is all this?" he asked again, though this time his voice carried less authority than before. Damien stepped forward. "This is simple," he said calmly. "We came here out of respect." The word respect hung in the air. Zara noticed the slight shift in her uncle's expression because respect was not something he had ever given her. Damien continued. "I love Zara," he said, "and I intend to marry her." Murmurs spread instantly. Did he say love? Marry? That girl? Zara heard it all, but this time the whispers didn't cut. They couldn't, because she knew her truth now. Her uncle let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You want to marry her?" he repeated. There was something bitter in his tone. "You don't even know where she comes from," he added. Damien didn't react. "I do," he said simply. That response caught her uncle off guard. "You do?" he asked. "Yes," Damien replied, "and it changes nothing." Silence. That silence spoke louder than anything else, because everyone there understood what had just been said. Where she came from did not reduce her worth. For the first time, Zara saw something in her uncle's eyes she had never seen before. Uncertainty. Damien's father stepped forward. "We came to do things the right way," he said, "to ask for her hand in marriage." Her uncle blinked. The words didn't seem to register at first. "Ask?" he repeated. "Yes," the older man said, "because regardless of the past, you are still her family." That sentence shifted everything. Zara felt it, because it gave her uncle something he didn't deserve, dignity. And yet it was not for him. It was for her to close the chapter properly. Her uncle cleared his throat, trying to gather himself. "Well," he began slowly, "if that is the case." His voice wavered slightly. "Then I suppose we can discuss." "Discuss what?" The voice tore through the air like thunder. Everyone turned. Zara's heart stopped. She knew that voice. Before she even saw him, she knew. Victor. He pushed his way into the compound, his presence as heavy and aggressive as ever. The crowd parted instantly, fear, respect, or both. His eyes locked onto Zara and darkened. "You!" he barked. Zara's body stiffened instinctively. For a split second, the old fear tried to rise, but then she felt Damien's presence beside her, and she stood her ground. "You think you can run away and come back like nothing happened," Victor continued. His voice was loud, accusing, possessive. "You are my wife." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Her uncle froze. Her aunt covered her mouth in shock. But Zara didn't move, didn't flinch. Damien stepped forward. "Watch your words," he said calmly. Victor turned to him, his eyes narrowing. "And who are you?" he demanded. Damien didn't raise his voice. "My name is Damien." Pause. "I'm the man she chose." The words hit hard. Chose. Zara felt it deep because for the first time that word belonged to her. Victor laughed harshly. "Chose?" he mocked. "She doesn't get to choose. Her uncle gave her to me." The crowd stirred again. All eyes turned to the uncle, who suddenly looked very uncomfortable. "You owed me money," Victor continued, "and you agreed she would settle the debt." The truth, spoken openly now. There was no hiding it anymore, no pretending, no excuses. Her uncle swallowed hard. "That was," he started weakly, but the words failed him, because everyone knew. It was real and it was ugly. Victor turned back to Zara. "You belong to me," he said. And this time, Zara stepped forward. The movement was small but powerful. "No," she said. Her voice was steady, clear, and loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't." The crowd went silent, completely, because no one had ever heard her speak like that before. Not to him. Not to anyone. Victor's expression darkened. "You think because you're wearing fine clothes, you're something now?" he sneered. Zara held his gaze. "I think I am someone," she replied. The words landed heavy, unshakable, and just like that, the power shifted again. Victor turned angrily toward her uncle. "Then pay me my money," he snapped, "or she comes with me." The tension rose instantly. The crowd leaned in, waiting, watching. Her uncle looked trapped, cornered. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, because he didn't have the money. Everyone knew it. And that was when Damien moved, calmly, deliberately. He reached into his briefcase. The movement alone drew attention. Every eye followed. He pulled out a bundle of cash, thick, heavy, and, without a word, he threw it, right at Victor. The money hit his chest and fell to the ground. Silence. Complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. It didn't stop there. Damien reached in again, another bundle, then another, and another, until a pile of money lay at Victor's feet. The crowd gasped. Whispers exploded. "That's too much, more than the debt. Way more." Victor stared at the money, stunned, speechless. Damien stepped forward. "That covers your debt," he said. His voice was calm, controlled. "But she was never yours." Every word landed with precision. "And she never will be." Silence. Heavy. Final. Victor looked down at the money again, then at Zara, then at Damien. His anger had nowhere to go, because he had been paid, more than paid. There was nothing left to claim. Slowly he bent down, picked up the money, and without another word, he turned and walked away. The crowd parted again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else. Respect. Shock. Awe. When he was gone, the silence remained. Then all eyes turned to her uncle. He stood there small, not physically, but in presence, in dignity, in truth. He looked at Zara, really looked at her, and for the first time, he saw what he had lost. He began, but the words didn't come, because there was nothing he could say, nothing that could undo what he had done. He lowered his head, then slowly, "You have my blessing," he said. The words were quiet, but they carried weight, not because he deserved to give it, but because Zara deserved to receive it. Zara stood still, her heart steady, her mind clear. She didn't need his approval anymore, but hearing it still closed something inside her. She turned to Damien. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything felt right. The past had been faced, the debt had been cleared, the truth had been spoken, and Zara was finally free. The city felt different when they returned. Not because it had changed, but because Zara had. As the convoy moved back through the smooth roads and towering buildings, she sat quietly beside Damien, her fingers gently intertwined with his. This time, she wasn't watching in awe. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't afraid. She was present. The noise of the city, the movement of people, the rhythm of life around her. It no longer felt like something she was stepping into. It felt like something she belonged to. She leaned her head slightly against the seat, her gaze soft as she looked out the window. The memories of the village were still there, but they didn't hurt the same way anymore. They felt distant, like something she had walked through and survived. "You're quiet," Damien said gently. Zara smiled faintly. "I'm thinking about—" She turned her head slightly, looking at him. "Everything." Pause. "Before and now." Damien nodded slowly. "That's a big difference." Zara let out a soft breath. "It feels like two different lives." "Maybe it is," he said. She thought about that, and for once she didn't feel conflicted about it, because the life she left behind was never truly hers. But this one she chose. When they arrived at the mansion, something felt different. Not in the house, but in her. She stepped out of the car and looked at the entrance, not with hesitation like the first day, but with quiet familiarity. Home. The word came naturally now, and that alone made her chest feel warm. The days that followed were filled with preparation, not chaotic, not stressful, but purposeful because there was something to prepare for. A wedding. Her wedding. At first, the idea felt surreal. Zara would sometimes pause in the middle of doing something, her mind catching up with the reality. "I'm getting married." The thought would sit there, then slowly it would turn into a smile. Grace helped her with everything. Dresses, fittings, hair, details she had never imagined she would care about. "You need to try this one," Grace said one afternoon, holding up a beautiful white gown. Zara stared at it, her breath caught. It was nothing like the one from the village, nothing like the torn, worn fabric she had once been forced into. This one was soft, elegant, perfect. "For me?" she asked softly. Grace smiled. "Of course." Zara reached out slowly, touching the fabric. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from emotion, because this time she wasn't being dressed for something she didn't want. She was choosing it. The day she tried it on, everything changed. She stood in front of the mirror, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. The gown fit her perfectly. It flowed around her like it was made for her. Her hair was styled gently. Her skin glowed, but more than anything, her eyes. They were different. No fear, no emptiness, just light. Zara took a slow breath. "Is that really me?" she whispered. Grace stepped beside her. "Yes," she said softly. Zara swallowed. Tears filled her eyes, but this time, they didn't fall from pain. They came from joy. Meanwhile, Damien watched everything from a distance, not detached, but respectful. He didn't rush her, didn't overwhelm her. He gave her space to grow into this new life, and she noticed. She always noticed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in warm colors, Zara found Damien in the garden, the same garden where everything had begun to change. She walked toward him slowly. He turned as he heard her and smiled. "You've been busy," he said. Zara laughed softly. "I didn't know weddings involved so much." He chuckled. "They do." A small silence followed. Then, "Are you happy?" he asked. The question was simple, but it carried everything. Zara looked at him, really looked at him. Then she nodded. "Yes." Her voice didn't shake. It didn't hesitate. "Yes," she repeated. Damien studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Good." The wedding day arrived like a dream. Everything was beautiful, the venue, the decorations, the atmosphere, but none of it mattered as much as how Zara felt. She stood in her gown, her hand steady, her heart full, not racing, not panicking, just ready. As the music began, she took her first step forward, this time not running, walking, by choice, by freedom. Every eye turned to her, but this time she didn't feel exposed. She felt seen and loved. At the end of the aisle, Damien stood waiting, his gaze locked onto hers, and in that moment, everything else faded. The past, the pain, the fear, gone. All that remained was now. When she reached him, he took her hands gently. "You look beautiful," he said. Zara smiled. "So do you." The vows were simple but meaningful. "I choose you," Damien said. Zara's heart swelled, and when it was her turn, "I choose you too." No pressure, no force, just choice. When the ceremony ended, applause filled the air, laughter, joy, celebration. But for Zara, the loudest thing in that moment was the quiet peace in her heart. Later that night, as the celebrations faded and the world grew calm again, Zara stood by the window, just like she had on the day she returned to the village. But everything was different now. Damien walked up behind her. "Still thinking?" he asked softly. She smiled. "Not like before." He stepped beside her. "Then how?" Zara looked out at the city, then back at him. "I'm not thinking about what I lost anymore," she said. Pause. "I'm thinking about what I found." Damien smiled. "And what's that?" Zara took his hand. "Happiness. And this time it stayed."